What's going on, guys? Welcome to your 23rd tutorial, and in this tutorial I want to talk to you guys a little more about event handlers. So before, we learned that you can take a basic event handler such as the onClick event handler and you could place it somewhere such as in a form button. But now what I want to show you guys is there are more event handlers than that basic onClick, and also you can place them in different locations. You're not only limited to form buttons. You can place them in links and actually some places where you probably never even think of. So let's go ahead and make one type of event handler, and this is called the onMouseOver event handler, and this gets called whenever you mouse over an element. For example, you don't have to click it, you don't have to, highlight it. As soon as your mouse hovers over it, that's when it gets called. So, we could do it with a form button, but we already did that. So let's go ahead and try something new. And let's go ahead and make a link. And might as well make it to the greatest website of all time, the new boston.com. And go ahead and might as well end that. And let's go ahead and write some text like hover over me, exclamation point, because we really want to emphasize this. So what I like to do is save it, launch it in Chrome, and click it. Make sure our link works. Alright, we're good to go so far. So now we have a basic link on the screen. So now let's go ahead and add that onMouseOver event handler. So just like before, like the onClick, we add it kind of as an attribute, and that's onMouseOver with the M and the O capitalized. Now, as your value, we can set it equal to JavaScript code. So let's just go ahead and I'm just going to make basic alert boxes. You can do different things, but an alert box is just the easiest to see what's going on with this example. So alerts, and then just go ahead and write something stupid like game time, because I feel like playing Call of Duty right now. So let's go ahead and save this and refresh it and check it out. I'm not going to click it and I'm not going to highlight it. I'm just going to scroll, have my mouse go over it, and as soon as it hovers over it, an alert box pops up that says game time. So that is the beauty of the onMouseOver. You don't have to click it. As soon as you hover over it, maybe it should be called onHoverOver, but it isn't. I don't name them. So that's the basics of that. So now that I mentioned onMouseOver, I feel compelled to mention this one. onMouseOut. And this is a little bit different. It's whenever you are hovering over a link and you don't click it, but you take your mouse away from it, then that's what this is get called. So let's just go ahead and put game time. Be like, hey, come back. So now let's go ahead and save it and see what happens. Again, no clicking involved here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my mouse, hover over it, nothing happens still. But whenever we take it away, that's when that event handler is going to get called. And again, that's onMouseOut. Whenever you take your mouse away from an element. So it says, hey, come back. Then you go ahead and click OK. So technically, if you had a web page and you had like 200 links on it, you could add one of these to every link, and then you can create the most annoying web page ever. But who would want to do that? If you do, then go ahead and send me a link and I'll check it out. But anyways, let's go ahead and get rid of that for now. And actually, might as well go ahead and get rid of this entire link because I want to talk to you guys about a different subject. Now that we know that you can add event handlers to different elements on a web page, I'm going to show you guys one place where you probably wouldn't think that you could add event handlers, and that's in the body tag itself. So go ahead and actually, before we get to that, just add some text on the screen, yada yada yada, and save it and check it out. Our web page loads and we have some basic text on the screen just like that. So we can't just add any event handler to the body, like we can't add onClick or onMouseOver. There are specific event handlers that you can add to your body tags, and one of those is called onLoad. And this is going to get called, if I hit my caps lock, this is going to get called whenever your web page is done loading. So let's go ahead and just make a basic alert and make something that says like your web page or website has loaded, exclamation point. Did I spell everything wrong? This wrong, this right, this right, this wrong. Perfect. So let's go ahead and save this, run it, and I'll show you guys what happens. Our web page loads, and when it's done loading, it just says your website has loaded. Good enough. Okay. So you might be thinking, I know it looks like everything's happening at the same time, but if you had a slow motion camera, you could see that your web page loads and then the JavaScript pops up. So that's why it's a little bit different than saying this. Alright, Bucky, if you're going to do that, then why wouldn't you just have the JavaScript right here? Well, sometimes you don't want to run JavaScript as soon as your web page starts loading. You want to run it as soon as everything is complete. And right now I'm just making alert boxes, and it's not really a useful example, but later on I'll show you guys why it would be useful to load a bit of code after your website has loaded. So now that I showed you guys the onLoad alert, or excuse me, the onLoad event handler, you guys are probably thinking, alright, then is there on onLoad? Wow, definitely had my caps locked, and I definitely typed everything wrong. So on onLoad, there we go. So now let's go ahead and see what this does. But instead of your website has loaded, because that doesn't make sense anymore, just go ahead and write like goodbye. So the onUnload event gets called whenever the user exits a web page, and they can do this by clicking a link and it takes them to another web page, or even if they try to close out of their browser, this code is going to run before it lets them go. So let's go ahead, and I already saved this, refresh it, and it says goodbye. So let me go ahead, and the reason it said goodbye already is because whenever I refreshed it, I left that web page. So check it out. So now I have a web page with that onload. I cannot talk tonight. onLoad function already in there. So whenever I try to close out of my browser, it's going to stop me before, and it's going to say goodbye. So let's go ahead and close out of this, and it says goodbye before it lets me leave. So click OK, and now let's go ahead and just launch it in Chrome again. See, it loads perfectly like that because we haven't left it yet. So again, whenever I try to close it out of my browser, it says, alright, before you go, I just want to say goodbye. I'll miss you. Farewell. So now you can see the basics of, different types of event handlers. Not only are there different kinds of event handlers like onClick, onMouseOver, onMouseOut, and then your loads, but you can also begin to see that we can stick them in different locations. We're not only limited to buttons or links, and we're not even limited to the body, but in the upcoming tutorials I'm going to show you guys all the different types and places and why they're useful, and we're going to be getting more in depth because this is one of the main concepts behind JavaScript, and now we can start to see we're beginning to build smarter and more interactive web pages. But for now, that's all you get. So thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys later.